me or simply to himself, but I remain quiet as he continues. What have you done? I don't know what's going on here, what this is between us, what this is inside of me. It's a battle between heart and mind, I whisper, and when I do, he looks up at me. I watch his face tighten in grief. The feeling thickens the room, and it takes him a while to speak again, but when he does, the words are drenched in shame. Are you all right? When I don't answer him, he exhausts on a breath. That's a stupid question. Declan. I'm sorry. What I did. That wasn't... Stop, I tell him when his voice begins to crack. What happened to you as a child? His hands clench as he fights with his building emotions. It fucking breaks me. Don't do this. But he doesn't even acknowledge my words as he goes on. And then what I did to you. I don't know how I lost control like that. Seeing you in that room. That was supposed to be ours. You don't know how badly I wanted that. How much I wanted to take you away from the husband I thought was... He lets his words drift, and I want to cry, but I don't. I know he doesn't want to see my tears, so I keep myself focused, but I'm dying on the inside. To sit here and listen to his words that are masking cries of his own is awful. This is a man of abundant discipline and authority, so to hear him so broken down, so weak, it destroys me. How do I get past a deceit of this magnitude? He eventually questions. I wish I knew. I wish I could go back, but I can't. I don't even really know how to explain this all. I want to be honest. I want you to know the real me, to know the truth, but it's so hard. Because the truth is so gross and twisted, you probably wouldn't even believe it, because people don't want to believe that life can be that horrifying. I'm a fucked up human. I know this. I don't know what it is to be a rational person, but you make me want to learn. You make me want to try. His eyes were open, he says out of the blue, and I'm confused as to what he's referring to, but then he adds, After I shot him, I saw photos of you on his desk. After I gathered them up along with the file, I looked down at Bennett's bloody body, and his eyes were still open. He says this, and I remember that Pike's eyes were the same. I'll never forget how haunting they looked. He knew who you were. I know, I say. I heard him in the hospital. He was having me followed. He knew you and I were together. He then stands, walks over to the bed, and sits down next to me. He doesn't touch me, although I wish he would. I hurt you today. I'm okay, I whisper. He then looks down at my knuckles that are wrapped in band-aids. My shattered mirror tells me otherwise. Bad memories. Did it happen a lot? He asks on a voice that's barely even a whisper, like he's afraid his words will break me, and for the first time in a long time I feel like they possibly could, that I'm not as tough as I used to be. I give him a nod, but it isn't enough for him when he urges, I need you to tell me. I hesitate, licking my lips, wanting to give him the honesty he's asking for, but also terrified for him to know. Tell me, Nina. Please, don't call me that. I'm sorry, he says, looking away from me. It's all I know you as. Look at me, he does. This is me. This is what I want you to know. Elizabeth, he murmurs, and I nod, affirming. Yes, Elizabeth. Tell me then, Elizabeth, because I need to know you, to figure you out. Yes, I respond. It happened a lot. It was dirty and gross and... What did he do to you? I swallow hard, scared to say the words. My hands fidget nervously, and when Declan sees, he covers them with his own. I've never told anyone, I confess. Only Pike knew, and he was there. I didn't have to say a word because he saw it all. I told you about my mom, remember? Of course I remember. I opened up to you about something I had never spoken about to anyone. I gave you that piece of me. a peace that makes me embarrassed and ashamed. I remember seeing his tears when he told me he cowered under a bed while he watched a man shoot his mother in the head, a shot that killed her. He thinks himself weak and a pussy. Those are the words he used. He made himself vulnerable to me, so I'll give him what he's asking for, something I've never given anyone. It started on my 10th birthday, with him forcing Pike to have sex with me. He would take us down to the basement. There was a dirty mattress he kept on the floor. He'd watch us while he sat in a chair and jerked himself off. Most of the time he would get up to come on either Pike or myself. Saying the words turns my stomach, and I can already feel the wave of nausea come over me. We would be down in that basement at least 4 times a week. A couple years later was when it switched, and Carl started touching me. I stop and drop my head. I can't bear to look at Declan anymore when I start to feel the filth crawl along my skin. Tears burn the backs of my eyes as I try to keep them at bay, but they come anyway. "Don't look away from me," he tells me when he tugs my chin up to face him. With my head up but my eyes closed, I say, "It's humiliating." "I don't care. I don't want you hiding from me. Look at me and trust me enough to give me this truth." So I do. I open my eyes, and while tears continue to fall from my eyes and drip off my chin, I tell him everything that happened in that basement. How Carl would rape me, sodomize me, piss on me, beat me, and whip me. How he'd come on my face and laugh at me while he'd wipe it off with his finger and force me to lick it. How he'd piss on the mattress and shove my face in it, force me to finger his ass while he'd beat himself off. How it didn't take long for him to turn me into a machine because it's what I had to do to survive. I sob as I give him this sick part of me and explain why I started having sex with Pike by ourselves. Explained how it soothed me and provided an escape for me. I rip myself open and let the rot fall onto Declan's lap as I reveal my twisted childhood to him. He listens, never interrupting, but encouraging me to go on. His eyes are wide in disbelief and pity, and I know he will never look at me the same way again. He now knows the reality of my pathetic existence, the worthlessness of my body, the one he used to look at in amazement and admiration. He'd call me perfect, beautiful, and flawless. But now he knows the truth. This body was never something he should have valued. Anyone would be foolish to value the pile of shit it is. It's simply a capsule, fancy wrapping paper, that conceals everything I'm made of. Sewage. "Why didn't you ever say anything?" "Because I was scared if I did, I'd lose Pike. I feared going to another abusive home and being alone. Pike was all I had. I didn't want to be without him," I try to explain. "He used you." "Who? Pike?" "Yes. If he loved you like you claim he did, he would have pushed you to get help, to get you to a place that was safe." Shaking my head, I refute, "It doesn't work like that. And he did love me. He gave his whole life to me. I was always safe with him." Declan bites down hard, causing his jaw to tick, and I tell him, "You won't ever change my opinion of Pike. I don't expect you to understand, but we were just kids. We did what we could to survive. Whether you believe it to be right or wrong, what's done is done. And looking back won't change anything." "I wish I could take it away." "You can't," I say weakly. "Just like I can't take away the pain in your life. I want to. I want that power more than you know." Sitting in the darkness, making my confessions and opening myself up, I wonder why Declan remains unmoving by my side. My desire to crawl inside of his head, to know the thoughts he hides in there, is strong. His expression is hard to read as he looks at me. The hush in the room is unsettling, yet peaceful. I was starting to wonder if he would ever be able to be in the same room as me without punishing me. "I should go," he eventually says. "Okay." He stands up from the bed, and when he does, I lie down. I watch him turn back to me, and in a sweet gesture, he pulls the covers over my body and then braces his hands on the mattress, hovering over me. Stay. Why? I breathe. I don't know why. Just don't go back to the States just yet. He pushes off the bed and walks to the door. I'm sad when he leaves, lonely and empty. His scent looms in the air, and I take a deep breath to capture him in my soul. Lying here in the dark, I feel haunted by the demons I just released. And now he knows the fallacy of it all. As for me, I've just sliced through my deepest scar tissue and reopened the wounds of desecration. I battle with my heart to shut down, to turn into the machine that protects me from that which is destined to destroy me. Between the memories that just rebirthed inside of me and the loss of Declan's presence, the mass of emotions is too much for me to even think about right now. So I cloak myself in armor and delight in stupor. Chapter 23. Callum. I was offered a plea deal when my attorney came to see me yesterday. Since my part in all this was simply being a man of the books, the white-collared crook, they want me to rat out the bigger names to the operation. The thing is, I don't have many names. The men that do the runs are worth a lot more to the feds than I am, but I'm not privy to that side of the business. The one name I am privy to is the one I know they want the most. The king of the cartel. But to cross paths with him would be a death sentence. I've learned that lesson. So I played dumb, kept his name shrouded in my arsenal. If I narc, I'm a dead man. It's much safer for me in here, locked behind steel and iron. No one messes with me much. Money buys safety. And I've got an endless source, and people on the outside that make sure the steady stream keeps flowing. What isn't available to me is being taken care of by Lachlan, who I'm now calling. The guard keeps watch outside of the laundry hall where I now work 4 days a week, earning a pitiful 11 cents an hour. Cal, he greets when he finally answers. How are you? How the hell do you think I am? Did you take care of the money? Yeah, all done. There was an event recently that was held for the charity, so it was easy to filter into the accounts. And Declan? I ask. What about him, sir? Any suspicions from him? No, he's been distracted these days. How so? A woman, Elizabeth Archer. She appeared in town recently. He's been having me follow her. I don't bother to ask why. Time isn't my friend at the moment. But I can only guess that boy will probably forever be fucked up when it comes to trust. He never told me anything about the shooting, who did it, or for what reason. But I know it all boils down to Nina Vanderwall. All he told me was to feign his death to her if ever we should cross paths, and that he wanted me to keep my distance from him. I agreed, and he disappeared back to Scotland to live in that estate he bought years back. I can't figure that kid out, or why he wants to wallow alone in practically the middle of nowhere. I've yet to have anyone make contact with him, and as far as I know, no one has. He's unaware that I'm sitting in jail for crimes he knows nothing about. Crimes I've been committing since he was a little boy. She's staying in town close to him, Lachlan adds. In Gala. At the Water Lily. What the fuck? Declan was there? I ask, wondering if he knows what was kept from him. It's where Elizabeth is staying. He was there the other day for a couple hours in the middle of the night and then returned home. I'm not given the chance to respond when the guard slams the door open and shouts, "Time's up, inmate!" He snatches the phone from my hands and disconnects the call. What the hell happened to 5 minutes? I sling in hostility. Price influx, bitch. It's gonna cost you more next time. Grabbing my arm, he leads me out of the laundry room, and even though my bones burn to knock the living shit out of this pussy, I keep myself in check because I can't be getting thrown in the block. I need to continue having access to that fucking phone or find a way to get my hands on my own. First thing I need to do is find out who this Elizabeth woman is that has my son going to the Water Lily. So I wait in my cell until rec time and then make my way to the phone bank where I can make my call. "Cal, baby," Camilla's voice sighs into the phone. I thank God that the values of this woman are slightly shady to accommodate being involved with a man who's facing up to 25 years in a federal prison. "How are you holding up, love?" I ask. "I miss you. Trying to take care of everything on my own is drowning me." "I know. I'm sorry. I need to see you, though. I need you here this weekend." "Of course. You know I never miss a visit. Is everything okay?" "Yes. I don't want you worrying about me," I tell her. "It's just important that I see you." I urge my words because what I need her to do for me isn't something I can mention on these monitored calls because of the names involved. "Callum," she softly scolds, "you're in jail. How can I not worry about you?" 90 seconds remain. Fuck. Bracing my hand against the cinder block wall, I bark, "Did you send the money into my account?" "Yes, but you know how slow they are." "I need you to call about it because I'm all out of time. I won't be able to call you until I get that money." "I promise, Cal." 30 seconds remain. "God, I hate this," she cries. "I miss you so much." "I miss you too. I'll see you in a couple days." "I'll be there. I love you." "Love you too." Walking into the quad, I take a seat in front of the TV that's playing an episode of Jeopardy! I look to my left and watch a couple of illiterates shout out their answers, and I find them to be more entertaining than the actual show. "Hey, puta." My body stiffens when the words slither across my ear, and the coolness of what I imagine to be a razor blade pierces the flesh of my back. "I'm talking to you, Essay," he says, sitting behind me with his face hovering by the side of mine as he talks quietly into my ear, so as to not arouse attention. "What do you want?" I keep my voice even and hard. "Your boss wanted me to relay a message for him." "My boss?" "That's right. He don't want you acting a jit. Saying things that don't need to be said. Mentioning names that don't need mentioning." He digs the blade into my skin, and I bite back against the sting as he sneers. "You don't need to be reminded about your vieja, no?" I snap my head to look him dead on, and he backs off, slipping the blade down his sock quickly. My blood boils, and the rage that brews inside takes an effort to keep under control. The guy smiles, dismissing his threats in exchange for a light chuckle, saying, "Whoa, mi amigo, relax." "Relax? You mention my vieja, and you expect me to relax? I don't need a reminder, and I'm not your amigo. Next time you talk to my boss, you remind him that loyalties lie thick, sometimes in a pool of blood." He gives a curt nod, taking in my words, and then I add, "You threaten me again, I'll turn you into a prag and stick a brinker on your ass." He laughs, stands, and before walking away shakes his head, saying, "You surprise me, Blanco." And then, with a smile, adds, "I'll let the boss know we're good." "You do that." "I had to lift my bra, Cal." "What? Why?" "Apparently I look more suspicious than the garbage I was standing in line with," Camilla whispers under her breath, and then takes a scan of the room to make sure no one else heard her. "It was utterly degrading." Sitting at the small table, across from the woman who's loved me for the past year, I'm pissed at the scum that got to see my doll's tits when I haven't had the privilege since they arrested me. She's mortified and angry and completely out of place. She always stands out like a sore thumb when she visits me, dressed in her designer clothes, but that's my Camilla. "I miss you, love." "The waiting is killing me. I know it isn't fair for me to say that when you're locked up in here, but I feel like I'm in a constant state of anxiety," she says. I haven't told her about the plea deal that was put on the table, because she'd have me do anything, throw whoever they wanted under the bus, just to get me back. The case will be taken to the grand jury soon enough. That's the first step. But in the meantime, I need you to do something for me, okay?
Okay.
First, any update on the Vanderwall murder? I ask, since you can't get the guards to turn the TV to any of the news stations.
The whole company is under investigation, but for what the public isn't aware of yet.
She releases a heavy sigh, leans forward, and grows emotional.
What am I supposed to do, Cal? It's only a matter of time before this all hits the press. Everyone will know. Our names will be smeared all over the place.
My words are safe with you, right?
You don't even have to question that. Of course they are. They always have been. I love you and will do anything for you. You know that.
I just needed to hear it again. This place messes with my head, I tell her, but I know I can trust her. She's unlike any woman I've ever loved. She may be 23 years younger than me, but she's a fighter. After my arrest, I came clean to her about the illegal activity I'd been involved with. I told her everything, and she didn't disappoint when she offered to tell the authorities whatever it was I wanted her to. This woman would lie, cheat, and steal from me, and I love her even more for that. So as she sits here, prim and proper against the trash of the city's misfits, I smile inside to know she'd probably fight dirtier than most of them, and she'd look simply gorgeous doing it. What about his wife? Has she been in the news?
No. The coverage is so limited at this point. The police are keeping a tight lip while the case is being investigated.
I give a nod, and then she adds,
Honey?
What is it?
Have you thought any more on calling your son? Don't you think he should know?
Clapping my hands together, I rest my forearms on the table. Not yet.
I could call him.
I shake my head, saying, Lachlan mentioned a girl he's been spending time with in Gala. Elizabeth Archer. Can you remember that name?
Elizabeth Archer,
she repeats.
Yes, why?
I need to know who she is and what interest she has in my son. Lachlan told me she's only been in Scotland for a short time. I couldn't get too much information because the call was cut short.
Who do you think she is?
Don't know. But someone shot Declan within days of Bennett's murder, and he refused to mention who. There's a link in this somewhere. I know it.
This is so unfair, she voices. I mean, you never hurt anyone. I don't know why you're sitting here in jail and not the others who are involved. Why don't you give up their names?
You know why, Camilla. We've already talked about it. These aren't the types of people you turn your back on. This business is much bigger than me, and knowing the amounts of money I've been laundering and the lives at stake if someone were to blow the whistle, I'd be killed.
I know we've talked about it. It's just...
Look, I say, wanting her to not get wrapped up in the emotions of it all. For right now, just focus on taking care of yourself. Focus on figuring out who this girl is that's spending time with Declan. I don't want you getting hung up on things that are out of our control right now, all right? Nodding, she yields.
All right.
Chapter 24. Stepping foot on foreign soil feels freeing. I'm relieved of the weight I've been bearing on my back, and it's a welcome change to be able to walk around without constantly looking over my shoulder. I arrived here in Scotland yesterday, and after getting my first night of solid rest in a long time, I woke up this morning, revived. But now, it's business. Finding her is my ticket to freedom. So when I open up my laptop, I start searching with the two names I'm already aware of that she uses, Nina Vanderwall and Elizabeth Archer.
Chapter 25. Hello? I answer when my cell rings.
Elizabeth, it's Lachlan.
His voice disappoints. Ever since Declan came to me and asked me not to leave, I've been hoping to hear from him, but so far, nothing. Hi.
I was wondering if we could get together. I have some information about your mother."
A slight jolt of adrenaline rushes my body. Or is it anxiety? Fear, maybe? I don't know what it is exactly, but it awakens something inside of me, and I ask, "You found her?"
"Yes. Do you have time to meet me?"
"Are you in town?" I ask, knowing he lives over an hour away in Edinburgh.
"I can be. You just tell me what works for you."
"I can come to the city."
"Are you sure?"
"Yeah," I respond. "It'll be nice to have a little change of scenery." Honestly, I just need a distraction. I spent all of yesterday moping around after having Declan here the night before. The tangled mess of this situation is driving me to madness. Trying to deal with the wound I opened the other night is proving to be too much for me to cope with. And when one wound opens, so does another. With the rousing of the shame and disgust of my past that I'd forced to lie dormant for so long, I needed a vice to help me grapple with the war inside of me. So I did what I'm becoming good at, and when the tranquility of blood running down my neck faded, I hammered my fists into my thighs. I wasn't sated until I could finally see the blood pooling beneath my skin. Mutilated alabaster. I hang up with Lachlan after I jot down his address and grab my scarf and coat. I head out and make the drive to Edinburgh. When I make my turn onto Merchiston Gardens, I'm greeted with beautiful Victorian homes.
"Did you have any problems finding it?"
Lachlan asks when he opens the front door after I pull up to his house. "I'm in a foreign country," I tease. "I always have problems when I drive here." He laughs, and as I approach, he remarks with jest,
"Well, you appear unscathed, and the car still looks to be in one piece."
"Lucky car," I respond with a wink before stepping into the foyer. The walls are bathed in rich taupes, ivories, and wines, with hardwood floors and large bay windows. The house is airy, with lots of natural lighting. "Lovely home." Walking past me, I follow Lachlan through the house to a formal sitting area.
"Can I get you a drink?"
he offers. "No, thank you." Slipping off my coat, I drape it over the couch and take a seat, with Lachlan sitting adjacent to me. "Impressive." He laughs, saying,
"You're being generous. One could say I was slumming it when compared to the likes of your man's Brunswick hell."
"My man?"
"Isn't he?"
Continuing the light banter, which tends to come easily between the two of us, I say, "Well, for anyone who knows Declan, you're instantly aware that no one stakes claim on him. He operates on the contrary." Crossing my legs, I chuckle, adding, "Total control freak."
"Try working for him."
His words perplex, and I question, "You work for him?" And when he nods, I note, "You failed to mention that."
"You failed to ask."
"Is there anything else I've failed to ask that I should be aware of?"
"Oh, yes," he exaggerates in humor. "But where's the fun in transparency?"
Man of mystery. He smiles, and I laugh. "So tell me, Lachlan, what is it that you do for Declan?"
"I manage his finances, among other things. And what about you?"
"Me?"
"What do you do for a profession?"
His question perturbs, and I deflect. I prefer to dabble instead of commit to a singular entity.
"Entrepreneur."
"Isn't that just a fancy word for unemployed?"
"Which do you prefer?"
"Honest and straightforward," I tell him. "No reason to dress up the truth, because when people realize the crudité is just a veggie platter, they feel cheated, and the culprit looks like a fraud." He laughs, but little does he know I'm the crudité here. I'm a distorted hyperbole. At least that's what I have been. I'm trying to shed the guise because I need a solid ground of understanding to figure out who I am. What are the true fibers from which I'm woven? And then I remember why I'm here, and I wonder, am I ready for this? Do I really want to know? He told me he found her, the mother I've never known, and a multitude of questions begin to rain down. Did she ever love me? Did she love my dad? Why didn't she want me? Did she know my dad was in prison? Did she know I was in foster care? Why didn't she come for me? Why didn't she save me? How could she just dispose of me?
"Are you okay?"
Lachlan questions, his voice thick with concern. I flick my eyes up to him, realizing I let my mind drift and pull me away. "Yes, I'm sorry." I shift, and leaving the humor behind, I say, "I'm a little uneasy."
"How so?"
His voice mellows with the change in mood. "Wondering if I want to open this door that's been closed my whole life."
"We don't have to do this," he tells me. "If you've changed your mind or you want to wait, it's up to you."
"Seems weird," I remark. "Sitting here with you, practically a stranger, and yet you know about my mother when she's nothing more than a question mark for me."
"She doesn't have to be a question mark. But if you're not ready—"
"I thought I was. Now I'm not so sure." He stands up, walks over to the credenza, and picks up a manila envelope. My eyes follow him as he moves to me and sits by my side. Placing the envelope on my lap, he says,
"I don't believe there's a right or wrong choice here. But if you do find yourself wanting to open the door to the mystery, it's all in there."
I run my hands along the paper that separates me from my mom, and my apprehension grows. It's the conundrum of whether this envelope holds hope or dejection. Will this lead me to answers or just create more questions? And do I even care? It's not like she means anything to me, right? And then I wonder why I never did care enough to learn about her. Maybe it's because Pike was enough for me to fill that void of family. I mean, he never could fill the void of my father. Nobody had the power to do that. But Pike did become my family. He was my protector and comfort, and I didn't feel like I needed anyone else because he was enough. But now he's gone. And so is Declan. Even though he keeps me around, he no longer belongs to me. But did he ever? These few weeks since everything came crashing down, my loneliness has grown to a point of neediness, and now a part of me feels like I need this, whatever it is that's inside of this envelope. "Tell me, Lachlan, are your parents still alive?" I ask in melancholy, confused about my feelings, wondering if there's anyone else here on this planet that can relate to me.
"Yes."
"Big or small family?"
"Big."
"Close?" I question.
"Yes."
Sad warmth creeps along my cheeks, and I take a moment to push the feeling aside before speaking again. "I never had that." He doesn't respond, but what is there to say?
"Would you like a distraction?"
he offers, and I sigh in exasperation. "Please." His smile is friendly as it grows, and he takes my hand, guiding me to stand. Handing me my coat, he says,
"Let's get out of here."
He then takes me to Café e Cucina, where we indulge ourselves with cappuccinos and quinaman, which Lachlan promises I'll enjoy, and the French pastry doesn't disappoint. We spend a leisurely few hours getting lost in conversation. He tells me stories about his time with Declan at St. Andrews, as well as a few funny tales from his own childhood in Scotland. I ask questions about the culture, as does he about life in the States. It surprises me to find out he's never been to the U.S. I tease him about eating beans for breakfast, and he teases me about the fact that getting a 32-ounce soda, or as he calls it, fizzy juice, is a commonality in the States. Lachlan provides me with a good afternoon, doing exactly as he said he would by giving me a distraction. I haven't spent much time with him overall, but it's nice to feel like I have a friend here, someone I can talk to and laugh with. Lachlan makes it easy for me to feel relaxed in his presence, and I enjoy our friendly banter. But now the joviality is gone as I sit here, back in my room in Gala. Since I returned, I've been sitting here with this envelope, debating on whether or not I should just throw it away, trash it, burn it, or should I open it and read it? I asked Lachlan, since he knows what's enclosed, if it was worth me reading. His response was vague, telling me that people find comfort in various ways, and only I could make that decision. And I did. You see, as much as life had failed me,
As much as I wanted to pretend I didn't waste my time on hope anymore, I still hung on to it. And that evening, sitting in my quaint room at the Water Lily Bed and Breakfast in Galashiels of Scotland, I made my decision and allowed that hope to bloom inside of me. I thought that maybe, just maybe, I had a mother out there that wanted me but could never find me, that maybe the envelope held the key to my maternal godsend. But what I learned next frightened me, and let me tell you, I wasn't a woman who frightened easily. The first thing I see when I pull out the contents from the envelope is a mugshot of my mom. I recognize her face from the photo I've always had of her, but in this picture she looks wrecked with a blotchy face and ratty hair. I stare into her eyes that look like mine. Along with the mugshot are a stack of court documents, a birth certificate, and a contact printout for Elgin Mental Health Center. The State versus Gwyneth Archer catches my eye when I begin to read. Her name's Gwyneth. She's always had a face from the one picture I have of her, but I've never known her name until now. I start scanning the court documents, and my stomach begins to twist when I hit certain words. With jittery hands, I flip through the papers. My heart rate picks up in shock and confusion as my eyes dart back and forth, unable to focus on the sentences. Defendant, child neglect, abandonment, illegal sale of a child, communications fraud. Disbelief consumes me as I read the words. I grow frantic as I continue to scour through the papers. I will my eyes to focus on the words, but I feel myself on the verge of flipping out. This can't be real. This can't be true. Mental illness, postpartum depression, manic depression. I keep reading, and with each word my mind fights to process, I come unhinged. The room begins to tunnel around me, and my chest tightens, making it difficult to breathe. Prosecutor: Mrs. Archer, did you negotiate the sale of your 2-month-old daughter, Elizabeth Archer? Defendant: Yes. A hysterical explosion of tinnitus ricochets in my head, piercing, shooting an unrelenting blast of pain. My hands clutch tightly to the papers as my vision teeters in and out of focus. I squint, determined to read further, but I'm fading out fast when my eyes scan, not guilty by reason of insanity. The papers drop, scattering across the floor as my hands shoot up to my ears in an attempt to mute the high-pitched ringing, but it's coming from inside my head. It's splitting my skull as it builds. The welling of every emotion inside of me creates an unbearable pressure, and I need release. I can't take it. It's so loud, so painful, too alive, too much. Oh my God, she sold me. Shuffling over my own feet, I have no balance as I move across the room. I can't hear anything aside from the squealing in my ears. I stumble and catch myself from falling, gripping onto the closet door handle. Gasping for breath, my eyes blur, and I begin crying, sobbing, wailing, screaming. She never even wanted me. Standing in the doorway to the closet, I grab onto the doorframe and hold on as I drop my head. My vision diminishes in a wild haze, and it's too much to contain. I can't handle the overwhelming hysteria inside of me anymore. I can't do it. I'm going to rupture. I can't do it. I can't. Lifting my head, I dig my nails into the wood, splintering it with my forceful grip. In quick motions, I reel my head back, grit my teeth down, and use every ounce of force inside of me as I violently slam my head into the doorframe. Drawing back, I bear down and do it again, smashing my forehead into the solid wood. My vision bursts in pops of light. There's a pounding knock on the door, but it sounds miles away. Thick, warm blood runs down my forehead, over my eyes and nose and cheeks. My body gives out and slides down to the floor. The ringing dampens, and my body tingles in gratification as the blood oozes from my gashed head. I faintly hear the door handle to my room ricketing back and forth, and then there's banging.
Open the door.
I can't focus on the voice yelling outside my room as the ringing returns to my ears, and the words I just read run back through my mind. Leaning my head back, my eyes begin to burn with the mixture of my tears, blood, and makeup. The sounds that engulf are out of control and torturous. The banging grows louder, and I move my eyes to focus on the door.
Open the fucking door!
I don't even flinch when I hear the crashing and splitting of wood as the door is being kicked down because I'm too far gone. I'm lost inside myself and nothing feels real anymore. Another kick, and I watch in a daze as Declan storms over to me. "Oh my God!" I hear a woman shriek, and I know it's Isla, but I keep my attention solely on Declan.
Jesus!
He panics when his hands come to my face, but it all feels like a dream. I can't even feel his touch. My body singes in radiant tingles, but somehow the flesh is utterly numb.
"I need wet towels,"
he shouts, and the ringing inside me settles to a low, monotone hum. It's incessant. "Should I call a medic?"
"No,"
he snaps at Isla before dabbing the wet towel to my face. I feel nothing, though. Is my heart even beating? I know it must be when I finally feel the pressure of touch, but it isn't from Declan. I roll my head to the side, and Pike is here with me. He takes my hand in his and holds it tightly. "You're here."
"I'm always here." "Yeah, darling, I'm here. What happened?"
I faintly hear Declan's voice, but it's almost an echo as I concentrate on Pike. "I miss you so much," I say as I begin to weep through a new slew of tears.
"Talk to me." "I'm right here, Elizabeth. Don't cry."
"She never wanted me," I choke out.
Who? Who?
"My mother. She sold me."
Fuck her. You never needed her anyway. Shh, just breathe, okay?
"I need someone, though. I'm so alone," I say to Pike.
"You're not alone,"
he insists, and then nods his head towards Declan. I briefly look over, and his hands are still on me, pressing a towel firmly over the top of my head. When I look back to Pike, I admonish, "He doesn't want me. He only pities the pathetic waste he now knows I am."
"Elizabeth, what are you talking about?" "He cares for you. Why else would he be here right now?"
"How could he care about me after what I did?"
Love is love. It doesn't just vanish. How can you be so sure about that?"
His hand squeezes mine, soothing the chills that now start to rack me, and leans over to whisper softly in my ear.
"Because even though you shot and killed me, I still love you with every little piece of my heart. I still want to give you the world." "How can I be sure of what? What are you talking about?"
Declan's distant voice questions me, thinking I'm talking to him. "Is she going to be okay?"
"She's fine. Please go and give us some space, will you?"
I barely hear Declan and Isla, but my eyes never leave my brother's as more tears fall. How can he still love me when I'm so unlovable? "I'm so sorry," I cry. "I want to take it back so bad, Pike, but I can't. I don't know how."
"Darling, look at me. Who are you talking to?"
"Tell me how, Pike. How do I go back and fix this?"
"You can't."
The finality of my choices, knowing they can't be undone, is a horrendous weight I carry with me now, a weight I doubt I can carry for much longer.
"Elizabeth, look at me. Focus."
Look at him, Elizabeth. He doesn't love me. It hurts to look at him.
He hides it, but if you look close enough, you can see his cracks.
But what about you? I want you to stay. I want you back. I plead like a small child begging for something that's impossible, but I beg anyway.
You have me inside of you. I can't get any closer than that. God damn it, look at me. You're scaring him, he tells me in a calm voice, and then urges one last time, look at him, Elizabeth.
And when I do, One touch is exchanged for another. My hand grows cold as my face warms under Declan's touch, and I begin to sob uncontrollably at the switch. Chapter 26. Declan.
"I'm so sorry,"
she wails, but she isn't looking at me.
"I want to take it back so bad, Pike, but I can't. I don't know how."
Did she just say Pike? What the fuck is going on? Darling, look at me. Who are you talking to? I ask as I press the now blood-soaked towel on Elizabeth's head, trying to clot the bleeding. But it's as if she doesn't even hear me when she continues to talk to nobody.
"Tell me how, Pike. How do I go back and fix this?"
Elizabeth, look at me. Focus. I yell at her, needing to get her to snap out of whatever hallucination she's having.
"He doesn't love me,"
she goes on.
"It hurts to look at him."
Fuck, what's going on with her? She's scaring the shit out of me with her cryptic eyes and this arcane conversation.
"But what about you? I want you to stay. I want you back."
God damn it, look at me, I yell again, grabbing her shoulders and shaking her. Slowly, she finally turns her head and raises her eyes to mine. My hands now cradle her face, and after a couple blinks, she crumples over and starts bawling, completely broken. I hold her as my heart pounds in turbulent beats, confused as shit. The adrenaline in my system slowly wanes as I sit on the floor with her. Her blood is everywhere, and I still don't have a clue as to what the hell happened in this room before I kicked down the door. Her body suddenly jolts, hands cup her ears, and her face pinches as she releases a ghastly scream. Horror storms through me, and I grab her shoulders to pull her up. Her eyes are clenched shut as she cries out,
"It's so loud. Make it stop."
"Make what stop? Tell me what's going on," I urge. She reaches her hand back behind her, and as I'm trying to get her to open her eyes and calm down, I'm horrified when I catch her clawing at her scalp. She writhes, hissing in an agonizing breath. Urgently, I scramble around her, grabbing her arms to restrain them behind her back. She struggles to get loose, but I tighten my hold when I see the grotesque scab that she's dug her nails into and ripped off. Fucking Christ, this girl is having a complete breakdown. "Stop fighting me," I demand harshly. But she doesn't stop as she cries out,
"It's so loud. Let go of me."
"Breathe. Stop fighting me and just breathe." I then let go of her arms, but quickly pin them to her sides when I band my arms tightly around her chest, taking control over her. It's harder for her to fight me and jerk around from this position, but she keeps trying. So I hold her until she begins to tire, all the while doing my best to keep an even tone as I continue my attempts to soothe her, repeating over and over, "It's okay. You're safe. Breathe." When her body weakens, losing the tension and sinking back into me, I release my firm hold on her. She's quiet and pulls in long, deep breaths. I don't know what the fuck is going on with her, but I do know she's losing her shit. The fact that she's hiding away here and inflicting these attacks on her body is beyond disturbing. One has to wonder if she's suicidal. And the fact that I just caught her having a full conversation with someone that doesn't even exist anymore is insane. I don't know what to do, but I know I can't leave her alone here. God only knows what she'll attempt next. So I stand and gather all the papers that are strewn on the floor, then scoop her up into my arms. Her blood is all over me and streaked down her face. Her body folds into me, and I get her the fuck out of here.
"Is she okay? Where are you taking her?" Isla asks in worriment as I make my way to the front door.
"She's fine. I'm taking her to my place." Walking out into the biting chill of the night, I put her in my SUV. She doesn't speak. She's completely absent. I strap the seatbelt around her and start heading to my house. While I drive, I pull out my cell and make a call to a friend of mine whose wife is a doctor. I stress to my friend the urgency of the situation, and after he explains what's going on to his wife, she agrees to meet me at the house. Once we make it back up to my place, I carry her in my arms upstairs to get her in the shower and cleaned up. She's totally withdrawn as I begin to remove her clothing. When I have her stripped down, I'm appalled by what I see. She's covered in a vast array of bruises: blue, purple, green, yellow, brown. They're all over her chest, stomach, and thighs, blotches of muted colors. "Did you do this to yourself?" I ask, but she doesn't respond. She keeps her eyes downcast and doesn't utter a word. "Look at me." But she doesn't. I duck my head to try and catch her eyes, but I get nothing but desolation. Turning on the water, I strip my clothes off as well, and then help her into the shower. She stands, unmoving, as I wash her. The water turns red as it runs over our bodies, taking the blood down the drain. I keep myself moving to distract myself, but after we're both clean, everything slows. Standing under the hot water, I see a girl I've never seen before. She's severed and lost and weak. She's nothing like the woman I met in Chicago, Nina. And I began to wonder how different these two people truly are. Who is Elizabeth? Is she anything like Nina? Strong, snarky, funny, smart? Who is this girl standing in front of me? I run my hands over her cheeks and cup her jaw, angling her head up to me. Her eyes shift to mine, and as I look into her, I murmur, "Who are you, Elizabeth?" She blinks, no expression to her face, and after what feels like hours, she finally responds in chilled words, "I'm nobody." And as mad as I am at her, as much as I hate her, as much as I want to celebrate her downfall, I have the urge to convince her that she is someone. I want to remind her of all the reasons I fell in love with her, but who's to know if those reasons were just products of her deception? I need a ballast of understanding with her, but I don't know if that will ever come. And what would I even do if I got it? There's so much I want to say, so many questions, but I know this isn't the moment for any of that. Turning off the water, I grab some towels, tying one around my waist before I get her wrapped up. I lead her to the bed and sit her down, saying, "Stay here. I'll be right back with some clothes." I rush to my room to toss on my sleep pants and a t-shirt before returning with a pair of my boxers and a shirt for her. I get her dressed and lay her down in the bed. She remains quiet. I don't even attempt to speak when she rolls onto her side, facing away from me. I know she's got to be physically and emotionally drained, and I want to let her rest. But I also don't trust her to leave her alone right now. So while I wait for Kyla to arrive, I pick up the envelope that contains the papers I took from Elizabeth's room, and take a seat on one of the chairs in the corner of the room by the windows. I pull out the sheaf of documents and start riffling through them to get them in order before I start to read. The information contained in the court documents is unsettling, and I can't believe what I'm reading. I spend the next half hour reading her mother's testimony where she admits wanting to terminate the pregnancy when she learned about her, but her husband begged her to keep it for him, so she did. But that after the baby was born, she grew depressed and started having thoughts of harming and even killing Elizabeth when she was an infant. How she felt her husband loved their daughter more than her. And eventually, how she secretly handled the selling of the baby to some guy she met through friends who lived in Kentucky. The intercom buzzes, alerting someone's at the gate, snapping me out of my engrossed thoughts. Setting the papers down on the side table, I walk over to the bed, and I'm shocked to see she's still awake as she stares out the window blankly. "Are you okay?" No answer. "I need to run downstairs for a moment," I tell her, but still, No returned response. Before I walk out of the room, I push the button on the intercom to open the gate and then head downstairs to meet Kyla. "Thank you for coming on such short notice," I tell her when she enters my home.
"Alex stressed how important it was for you to keep this matter private."
"Yes. The last thing I need is for some reporter to start digging around if it were to be mentioned I was at the hospital with a woman." Her smile is warm, and when she touches my arm, she says,
"You and Alec have been friends for years, and although you and I don't know each other that well, I want you to know that you can trust me."
"Thank you."
"Before I check on the girl—"
"Her name's Elizabeth," I interrupt, my stomach still knotted tightly from reading about her mother.
"Before I examine Elizabeth, can you tell me what happened tonight?"
I received a call from a friend, letting me know she would be learning something that would probably upset her. Her brows rise in confusion. The details aren't important, but needless to say, she didn't take the news well. After I ended the call with my friend, I rushed over to where she's been staying, wanting to check in on her, and when I arrived, she had locked herself in her room. She was screaming like a maniac and crying. I kicked the door down and she was covered in blood. She must have smashed her head against something. There was blood everywhere. She had calmed a little and began talking. I thought she was talking to me, so I was responding to her, but she wasn't looking at me. And then she mentioned someone else's name, I tell her, not wanting to reveal too much detail. She must have been hallucinating, and then it was like her whole body was in pain, and she started complaining about a ringing in her head.
"Has she had an episode like this before?"
"I'm assuming, but I don't know for sure. When I brought her back here, I put her in the shower, and her whole body is covered in bruises. It's like she's been beating herself. I know she has this wound on her head that she's been picking at."
"Is she on any medications that you know of?"
"No, I don't know."
"It's okay," she assures, and then asks to see her.
I lead her up the stairs and into the guest room where I left her. I follow her and stand off to the side while Kyla walks around the bed to talk to Elizabeth.
"Hi there. I'm Dr. Alloway. Can you tell me your name?"
I look on, waiting for some sort of movement, but there's no shift when I hear her weak voice answer,
"Elizabeth." "Last name?"
"Archer." Kyla sets her medical bag on the nightstand and begins asking Elizabeth a series of questions about the evening's events. Kyla helps adjust Elizabeth in bed and sits her up with a stack of pillows behind her back. They begin talking, and Elizabeth's voice sounds hollow as she explains about her mother, and I can tell by what she's saying that she doesn't know the extent of the facts like I do. She probably just read a few words and got herself so worked up she exploded.
"Was there anyone else in the room with you and Declan?"
she questions, knowing I had mentioned witnessing her talking to someone that wasn't there. I lean against the wall, silent, with my arms crossed over my chest when I catch her eyes glossing over with tears. She nods, and Kyla asks,
"Who else was there?" "My brother," she answers weakly. "Can you tell me where your brother is now?"
"I'm not crazy," Elizabeth immediately defends.
"No one said you were, but I need you to be honest with me so that I can help you." "You can't help me."
"Will you let me try?" she offers.
"We don't have to talk about your brother right now if you don't want to, but would you let me take a look at your head?"
Kyla begins to treat the wounds on her forehead and also the one on the back of her head. She then moves to examine the bruises on her body, along with taking her vitals. While she does all this, she continues to talk to Elizabeth, and soon she reveals,
"Sometimes when I'm really upset or stressed, I see my brother. He talks to me and calms me down."
Once she is finished, she writes a prescription for a mood stabilizer, and as I walk her out, she tells me,
"I'd like to see her again, but I'd like her to also visit with a psychiatrist. Like I said,
I don't know much about this case or the patient's family history, but my first thought is that she's most likely dealing with an untreated depressive episode with some congruent psychosis. What does that mean? There's no doubt she is terribly depressed right now, but that coupled with seeing and hearing things that don't exist, along with her erratic behaviors, raise quite a few red flags. It's actually a good sign, though, that her hallucinations seem to be related to her distress. I've never known her to be this unstable, though, I tell her, thinking back to the time we shared in Chicago. She was always so pulled together and witty. Sure, she would have these moments of sadness, but nothing like this. It's not an entirely uncommon reaction, and most of it surfaces under times of extreme stress, she informs. She also has a slight concussion from her head trauma. Nothing serious, but I would strongly suggest that you make sure you are waking her up every 2 to 3 hours, okay? Of course. I'll email you a list of doctors I would recommend for her to visit when I get to the office tomorrow. When she puts her coat on, I hand her back her bag, saying, I cannot thank you enough for this. She smiles and gives a nod. If you need anything else, or notice any changes in her, please call me. I watch as she walks to her car, and before she gets in, she reminds, and get that script filled. Drive safely. Walking back inside, I immediately pull out my cell and call Lachlan. He picks up on the second ring. Hello? What the fuck were you thinking, calling me after you gave her the information on her mother? I snap. Is everything okay? I told you I wanted to know as soon as you knew, not after you met with her. If you're finding it difficult to follow my very simple instructions, maybe you'd be better suited to work for someone who doesn't give a shit about attention to detail. It was a complete oversight on my part. I apologize. You knew what the fuck was in those court documents, and your oversight was in complete negligence. Agreed. How the hell did you get your hands on those documents with the case involving a minor anyway? I ask. Luckily, I know someone who knows someone that I was able to pay off in exchange for papers, he explains, and then asks, She read them? Yeah, she read them. Is she okay? Not of your concern. I think you're forgetting that your priorities are with me. I want you to stop following her because it seems you're sidetracked, and I don't want another oversight on your part. I berate and then disconnect the call. When I turn around, I stop in my tracks when I see Elizabeth standing at the foot of the stairs. You were having me followed? Chapter 27. Do you blame me? He says after I question him. And he's right, I can't blame him. How can I expect him not to be suspicious of me? His face is soured in frustration as he walks toward me. He brushes my shoulder as he passes, saying, Go to bed, and then heads up the stairs. Why am I here? He turns and looks down to me. Because I don't trust you to be alone with yourself. He begins walking back up the stairs, and a few steps later adds without making any eye contact with me, The doctor says you have a slight concussion, and I'm to wake you every couple hours. You should get some rest. Why are you so cold? You're so on and off, I question, confused by this push and pull he has with me. Certainly you don't need reminding, do you? I watch as he ascends, and I'm left alone in the silence of his home. His demeanor shifts in a snap, and I can only assume that whoever he was just talking to on the phone is the cause for that sudden snap. I don't worry about being followed because I deserve the distrust. Making my way back up the stairs, I notice the door to his room is open and quietly pad over. When I look in, he's lying on top of his perfectly made bed, his hands folded behind his head, ankles crossed, and staring up at the ceiling. I'm allowed a moment to absorb him before he senses my presence. With his body remaining still and his eyes fixed to the ceiling, he says without any inflection, Get out of my room. His tone is even, but I can hear the animosity deep within. so I go to the room he's put me in and crawl under the sheets. There's a disconnection inside of me, no doubt due to the extremities of this evening. Maybe I should be embarrassed that Declan saw me coming completely undone like he did, but I'm numb to emotion right now. My body is depleted, and to dissect this whole situation would take more energy than I have. So I roll to my side and stare out of the large windows at the full moon that lights the night's ink and slowly drift away. Whispers catch me, wrapping their sweet timbres around my heart, and gently pull me out of my slumber. Elizabeth, his soft rasp calls to me. Open your eyes. Fingers comb through my hair, and the touch sends a sparkling shiver through me, warming me from the inside and rousing me awake. Declan sits on the edge of the bed, hand cupping the side of my head as he looks down upon me. And he's so beautiful, I question if I'm still dreaming. Are you feeling okay? Exhaustion is all over me, and as much as I want to stay up with him, my eyes drop. I'm able to answer his question with a nod before sleep takes over. Light filters through my lids, and when my eyes flutter open, I see Declan moving about the bathroom. When he emerges in the doorway with a glass of water, he flicks the light off, darkening the room. I'm in a haze as his shadow moves closer to me, and when I feel the bed dip, my arm instinctually reaches out for him. Here, he says, take these. Dropping a couple painkillers in my hand, I put them in my mouth and then take a sip from the glass of water he gives me. My head falls back to the pillow, weighing 1,000 pounds and throbbing with an oncoming headache. I release an appreciative hum at the fact Declan was a step ahead of me in knowing I would need the pain relief. And with my eyes closed, the haze thickens and I sink into darkness. Gasping hard, I'm knocked out of a dead sleep as my body shoots up. Eyes flash open wide and I clutch my chest, panting loudly. My head is clouded with sleep as it strains to catch up to my alert body. Looking around my unfamiliar surroundings, I panic. Everything is disoriented. Elizabeth. My attention flies to the doorway of the room where Declan is standing, and it's then my confusion dissipates into clarity. Are you okay? He questions as he walks over to me and sits down on the bed. Yeah, I tremble. What happened? I don't know. Bad dream, I guess. We sit, facing each other, and I notice he's no longer wearing his shirt, and the moment my eyes catch it, I choke on a strangled breath. It's there, on his chest. My disgrace. The unmistakable proof. The reality of my fraudulence. My focus is locked on what remains from my twisted game. It mars his perfect body. 2 gunshot wounds branded on his left pec, tainting his chest in my scum. My pulse quickens, and when he looks down to see what has me so shaken, my heart reunites with the anguish from when I thought I'd lost him forever. My hand lifts, and he doesn't stop me when I reach out and brush my fingertips over the bullet wounds. The raised flesh that hides the deep scar tissue beneath splinters me to the core. I keep my eyes on his chest as he allows me this touch, and when my chin starts to quiver, I force my words out around the lump lodged in my throat, and the tears slip. I thought you were dead. And in an unexpected move, a tender gesture I never thought I'd get again, he cups my face and licks my tears. My hands grip tightly to his wrists as he cradles my cheeks. Closing my eyes, I lean into his mouth as he swallows my salts. In an unrushed moment, his lick eclipses into a silken kiss that erupts a wondrous rekindling inside of my womb. Whether I believe his emotions to be real or not, I pretend that they are, because I want his love so badly. I want to believe his lips are genuine and they mean exactly what my heart yearns for them to mean. I calm as we now share the same breath. My hands still cling to his wrists because I need the support of his strength in this moment. Opening my lips with his, he sinks his tongue deep inside of my mouth, claiming and binding us together. His taste is home, familiar and delicious. My body begins to swim in bliss when he lays me down on my back and my legs fall open for him. He's incredibly hard, pressing himself against me. I whimper as his kisses become more intent. His lips begin to move fervently, rapturing my mouth, and I meld to him, allowing him to take. I'd give him my last breath if that's what he desired. He's my body's epitaph. His intensity grows and we're nothing but wild heartbeats, frantic breaths, bleeding lips, broken souls. We cling, grab, and claw our way to incomprehensible closeness. His mouth finds the curve of my neck, and I writhe in pleasure as he bites me, marking my flesh, breaking through the delicate tissue, bleeding me out for him to taste. He growls deeply, chest vibrating against mine. Reaching down, he grabs the hem of my shirt and pulls it up, but quickly stops. Bracing himself above me, he looks down at my stomach, and when my eyes move to see what's pulled him away from me, my gut turns. I've mutilated my skin, gifting it with monstrous bruises. Declan drops his head, the tips of his hair brushing along my stomach. The moment my hands touch his head, he snaps up and pushes himself off of me. I sit up and instantly miss him as I watch his sudden change. His eyes narrow, then pinch shut as ache penetrates his face. What he's able to mend inside of me so quickly, he shatters even faster. He stands and walks away, depleting the goodness he just filled me with, but before he leaves, he turns back and says, "You breathe deceitful fumes. I can taste it when we kiss." And then he's gone, leaving me an empty mess, not wanting to think about the war that's going on inside of him, because that war will always cast back to me, and I can't deal with the responsibility of that burden in this moment. I'm too weak. When the sun begins to shine through the windows, I wake. My head is already throbbing as I stretch and sit up, tired from being woken up all through the night. I had a hard time falling back to sleep after kissing Declan, and when I walk to the bathroom, my darkened eyes confirm. I rummage around but find no toiletries. All my belongings are back at Isla's. I shiver from the chill in the house as I make my way to Declan's room, but it's empty. "What are you doing?" he asks, startling me, and when I turn around, he's walking up the stairs with a mug in each hand. "I woke up, and I was just looking for you. I wanted to freshen up, but there was nothing in the bathroom." He hands me one of the mugs, and I'm instantly greeted with a fragrant floral spice from the tea he made for me. Thanks," I mumble when he moves past me and into his bedroom. I don't know whether I should follow him, so I stay put. But I don't have to wait long for him to return with his leather toiletry bag I remember from his loft back in Chicago. "Here," he says as he hands it to me. "You can use my things." He then walks into my room, and this time I follow. He takes a seat in the sitting area by the windows, and I go into the bathroom, closing the door behind me. I open his bag and pull out his toothbrush, and take comfort in using it along with his deodorant. I brush my hair, careful not to rip off the bandage the doctor put over the scab on the back of my head. When I walk out, he's made himself comfortable, looking pulled together in slacks and a crisp charcoal button-up. But I can see the exhaustion in his eyes as well. I walk over and slip back into bed, covering up in the warm blankets, sitting against the upholstered headboard. I take a sip from my cup of tea and look over to Declan, who's flipping through a stack of papers. "Are those—" He raises his head and says, "I wanted to know what upset you, so I took them from your room." Have you... I fumble with my words as my anxiety picks up, remembering what I read. "I figured it would be best to talk about this and deal with it head on instead of it taking control over you." Shaking my head, I tell him, "I don't want to talk about it, Declan." "Why?" Putting the tea aside on the nightstand, I wilt down in the bed and give him my honest thoughts. Because it hurts too much. Because talking won't change it. Because my life is already too screwed up for me to handle. He sets the papers down on the coffee table in front of him, leans forward, and says, "Ignoring it is only going to make it hurt worse. That's your problem, Elizabeth." Shaking his head at his near slip, he looks back to me and continues, "You hide everything, and when you do that, you give those things power over you." "I don't." "You don't think so?" "No," I respond, and he releases annoyance in a sigh, saying, "Then explain last night to me." "That wasn't—" "Have you looked at yourself lately?" he chides. "A woman who's in control wouldn't be smashing her head into a fucking wall." "You don't understand," I defend. "Then please, explain it to me. Make me understand why your body is covered in contusions." His glare is sharp, pinning his frustrations to me as I sit here awkwardly. Knowing how Declan saw me last night, knowing the things I've revealed to him, I feel denuded of my armor I'm used to hiding behind. I've laid myself bare to this man, but now I want to hide again. I want to throw the facade on and lash my crude words at him, push him out of the honesty I've been giving him. But he sees me wanting to avoid when he presses, "I want you to tell me why you're determined to destroy yourself. Tell me why." Shaking my head, I stutter. "I don't... You wouldn't understand. I can't..." "Why hide now? Why? Just talk to me. Tell me." But I doubt he would even understand if I told him. I barely understand it myself. As I continue to avoid answering, he stands up and walks over to me, sitting on the bed in front of me. His closeness, especially after kissing him last night, unsettles me, and I let my fear grow. With a rigid tone, heavy with his brogue, he says, "Help me figure you out. Tell me why you're hurting yourself." "I'm not..." I begin when I hear the tribulation in the cracks of his stern voice. I give in to his request because I know he deserves it. I owe him whatever it is that he wants. "I'm not hurting myself." "I don't understand." "It makes me feel better," I confess. "When I'm hurting, really hurting, I hit myself and it takes the hurt away." "You're wrong. You're just masking the pain. You're not getting rid of it." "But I don't know how to get rid of it." "You deal with it. You talk about it and face it and process it." His words are reminiscent of Carnegie's. He once told me something very similar when I spoke with him about Bennett. But the thing is, to face a pain like that takes a particular type of strength I don't possess. "But what about you?" I accuse. "You hide." "I do," he admits freely. "I miss my mom, and I hide from that whole fucked up situation. But it's not eating at me the way you allow things to eat at you. I'm not the one throwing punches at myself. You are." His words are caustic. They piss me off because they're true. He's right, and I hate that. I hate that I've become transparent to him, hate that I've allowed that. Gone is the camouflage. I left it behind for atonement, for repentance. "I don't know how to do this," I concede. He gives an understanding nod. "I know. I just want you to talk, that's all." "About my mom?" "It's a good place to start." "What's to say? I mean, I'm scared to know too much," I tell him, struggling to not break down. "Too much? Did you not read through everything?" "No, I was so upset that I just couldn't read it. I couldn't focus." He insists that I need to know, so I sit and listen to him tell me the documented facts of how and why she sold me to some guy she barely knew, and the fabricated story she told my father and the police that I was kidnapped when she left me in my car seat unattended while she went inside a gas station to pay. He speaks in detail as I sit here like a stone, forcing my feelings away. I keep my breathing as even as I can as I concentrate on restoring my steel cage while he continues to tell me about her mental instability. She had extreme postpartum depression and was later diagnosed with manic depression and deemed insane by the courts, which is why she was sentenced to a state mental hospital instead of prison. Say something. I keep my eyes downcast, afraid if I look at him, I won't be able to hold myself together as well as I'm doing right now. Is she still there? No. She was released after serving 12 years. What? I blurt out in disbelief, finally looking up to Declan. But I was still a kid. Why didn't she come for me? She relinquished her parental rights. My thoughts begin to collide in my head, and when I turn my face away, he catches me. Don't do that. Don't avoid. Why am I so unlovable? Look at me, he demands, and when I do, his face is blurred through my unshed tears. Your mom was sick. She... What the fuck are you doing? I scream in disbelief. Why are you defending her? I'm not defending. I'm being rational. You can't rationalize what she did, I throw at him. She sold me. What if the police had never found me, but she didn't care what happened to me as long as she got what she wanted? You don't think it's worth making sense out of? To find any semblance of understanding? Are you kidding me? No. What she did was wrong. People like her don't deserve understanding. You mean people like you? He throws at me. What? How is what she did any different than what you did? His assumption that I'm anything like the woman who sold me pisses me off, and I snap, What the hell is that supposed to mean? I'm talking about you. Why did you marry Bennett? Why did you make me fall for you? Why did you lie? It's not the same, I state, refusing to believe I'm of the same vile nature as my mother. Because you wanted something to make you feel better. Because you were only thinking of yourself and you didn't care what happened to the people who came in your path or that you destroyed, he answers for me in growing rage. His words shut me up. I don't want to acknowledge the parallels, but it's there, unmistakably. He just threw it in my face. She knew better, I poorly argue. So did you, he affirms. I can't forgive her for what she did. No one is saying you have to. I just want you to face the facts and deal with it. I don't care how you deal with it as long as you do something with the information instead of hiding from it, he says. And yes, what she did was awful, and it makes no sense. But neither do your actions. And neither do your actions, Declan, I condemn, and he knows exactly what my words imply. No, you're right. I can't make sense out of the things I've done to you, but I do know enough to recognize that ever since I took a man's life, I haven't been the same. I carry an appalling amount of animosity inside of me that I don't know how to deal with. So we're all just screwed up? To some degree, yes, he responds. I don't want to downplay what your mother did. That's not what I'm trying to do. I just want you to face the facts and do something with it. And I see his point, because it doesn't even take me a second thought to know I don't want to resemble that woman in the slightest. I don't want that hostility living and breeding inside of me anymore. I want to let go of the resentment. I want to let go of the blame. I want to let go of the constant fiending for payback. But sometimes we don't get what we want, and even though I want to be without it, a part of me will probably always want to hang on to it. Chapter 28. I aim my foot to land on the small patch of snow, just to hear it crunch under my rain boot. The sound brings me a tiny piece of joy as I walk the grounds. The snow started to melt away yesterday when the sun finally peeked out from behind the heavy blanket of gray clouds. But today is another dank day, cold and damp. Declan still has me here at his house. He took me back to the Water Lily to pack some of my belongings, But I'm still paying for the room because he told me this arrangement was simply temporary until I was well rested and feeling better. This is my second day here, and I've hardly seen Declan. He spends most of his time up on the third floor where his office is. When the sun came out yesterday, he suggested that I soak up the vitamin D, so I decided to enjoy the grotto. I spent hours inside the clinker structure. He has a small round table with 2 chairs set in the center under the glass ceiling. Even though the temperatures were in the 30s, the sun warmed the room where I sat and daydreamed like a little girl, as if that grotto was my palace, and I, the princess captured, waiting for my prince to save me. And now, as I walk the grounds, stepping from snow patch to snow patch, I feel myself imagining this fabulous property as my magical forest, winding through the trees, up small hills, passing flower gardens bedding the blooms that will emerge in the coming months, as well as benches and man-made stone and pebble creeks. I wish for one of the creeks to be the mythical Lethe that Declan and I could drink from to vanish the past into a vapor of vacuity, to eradicate the sufferings of our souls. It's as if this is the forest I spent my childhood searching for. I used to sneak out of my foster homes during the night in a fit of wanderlust, hoping to find the place my father told me about. The fairy tales of kings and queens, flying steeds, and of course Carnegie, my lifelong caterpillar friend who used to fill my dreams. He hasn't come around since that night when I turned into a caterpillar as well. He's been replaced by the corrosive memories of my past, and when I'm lucky enough, empty nights of blank space. I find a spot up on a hill to perch myself. I sit, and my pants dampen, seeping up the melted snow that soaks the earth beneath me, but I don't care because I'm at peace. I fold my legs in front of me and look down on this house that, for now, I imagine is my kingdom. And when I close my eyes and lie back on the sodden ground, I believe that the man hiding away in his office at the top of the castle is my prince. I breathe in the essence of the innocent childlike dream, and I'm 5 years old all over again. Dressed in my princess gown, I see my father holding the bouquet of pink daisies, his face still a crystal-perfect image in my mind. Although 23 years have passed, I'm still a little girl, and he's still my handsome daddy who can fix anything with his hugs and kisses. "You're so beautiful," his voice whispers through the wind, and my eyes flash open when I sit up. My heart flutters at the realness of his voice, and then I hear it again. "Where have you been, sweetheart?" "Daddy?" My voice rings high in optimism through the breeze blowing through the trees above. "It's me." Looking around, I see no sign of anyone. I know this isn't real, but I don't care. I let whatever chemical my brain is spilling take me away, and I give in to the illusion. "I miss you," I tell the wind that carries wishes coming true. "I miss you too, more than you'll ever know," he says, and I smile at the way his voice warms my chest. "What are you doing out here in the cold?" "Escaping." "Escaping what?" "Everything," I say. "Being out here and exploring transports me back to a place of happiness where evil doesn't exist and innocence isn't lost." "But what about down there?" I look down to the house as he continues. "Why can't you find that inside those walls?" "Because inside those walls lies the truth, and the truth is, evil does exist, and innocence is just a fable." "Life is whatever you want it to be, sweetheart." "I don't believe that," I tell him. "I don't believe we are stronger than the forces of this world." "Maybe not, but I'd like to think of my little girl as someone who would fight for her fairy tale." "I've fought my whole life, Daddy. I'm ready to throw in the towel and give up." "Who are you talking to?" Turning my head, I see Declan standing off in the distance. "I'm not crazy," I instantly defend. He begins walking towards me. "I didn't say you were." But if I did what my soul is screaming for me to do, he would, because right now
The emptiness that refills what my father just warmed makes me want to cry out at the top of my lungs for him to come back. It roils inside of me, panging on the strings of my heart, but I mask it for fear of completely breaking down. Declan sits next to me, and I deflect, teasing. You just might destroy those slacks, sitting in the slushy dirt with me. He looks at me, and his expression is hard to read, but it's almost despondent. When he doesn't speak, I ask, "Why have you been hiding in your office?"
"Why have you been hiding out here?"
he counters. I asked first. Taking a deep breath, he admits,
"Honestly, it makes me nervous to be around you."
"Why?" He pulls his knees up and rests his arms over them as he explains.
"Because I don't know you. I feel like I know the character you played. I know Nina. She made me comfortable. But you, I don't know you, and that makes me nervous."
But before I can speak, he says,
"Now it's your turn to answer. Who were you talking to?"
Casting my eyes away from him, I reveal, "My dad," and wait for his response. But what he says next surprises me.
"What did he have to say?"
Shifting my attention back to Declan, he looks sincere in wanting to know. So I give it to him. "He told me I need to be stronger."
"Will you tell me about him?"
he asks, and then smirks, adding,
"The truth this time."
"What I used to tell you about him, the way he comforted me, the way you two resemble each other, it was all true, Declan. The lie was the Kansas story. Truth is, we lived in Northbrook. He was a great dad. I never had to question his love for me because he gave it endlessly." Thoughts from the past pile up, and I smile when I tell him, "The reason my favorite flower is the pink daisy is because that's what he would always buy me." My chest tugs when the memories fall from my eyes and roll down my cheeks. "We used to have these tea parties. I'd dress up and he'd join me, pretending to eat the little plastic pastries." I wipe my tears, saying, "I never asked about my mom. I never really thought about her because my dad was more than enough. I never felt like I was missing anything."
"You mentioned he went to prison,"
he says, and I nod. "Yeah," I respond, and sniff before explaining. "He was arrested for gun trafficking. I was 5 when the cops arrested him in front of me. The vision of my dad on his knees, being handcuffed, and promising me that everything would be okay is still so vivid in my mind."
"So what happened?"
Shrugging my shoulders, I resign, "That was it. I never saw him again. I went into foster care and had the shittiest of caseworkers out there. He went to Menard Prison, and I wound up in Posen, which was 5 hours away."
"Nobody ever took you to go see him?"
"No. My caseworker barely made time to come see me, let alone drive me across the state. But she did make the time to come tell me my dad had been killed in a knife fight."
"How old were you?"
12. He reaches out and takes my hand, turning my palm up. His voice is gentle when he says,
"You didn't answer me when I asked you this before, but I need to know."
He then drags his thumb over the faint, white scars on my wrist.
"Tell me how you got these."
My head drops in embarrassment, not wanting to add another layer of disgust on top of everything else he knows about me. With my hand still in his, he takes his other and covers my wrist with it. When I look into his eyes, he urges,
"I want you to tell me."
So, I take a hard swallow and muster up what strength I can to confine the pain. It takes me a moment, and after a measured breath, I cut through another wound and allow it to bleed out for Declan. "When I wasn't in the basement, I was in the closet. My foster dad would tie me up with his leather belt to the garment rod in one of the closets and lock me up."
"Jesus,"
he mutters in disbelief.
"How long would you—"
"Every weekend. I'd go in on Friday and come out on Sunday. Sometimes I'd be in there during the weeknights, but during the summers it was constant. I'd be in there 3 to 5 days at a time.
He'd let me out long enough to go down in the basement, but then he'd tie me back up and lock the door again. I feel numb when I tell him this, caging off the emotions I fear. The horror splayed across his face is hard to look at, so I keep my head down, but he picks it up. Moving closer to me, with his hands on my cheeks, he angles me to look up at him. My jaw is locked tight while I continue to hold myself together. "Why?" he scolds harshly as he holds me in his hands. "Why didn't you tell someone? Why did you let that happen to you?" His words rankle my nerves, but instead of blowing up at him in a rage, I narrow my eyes and seethe. "You don't know shit. You had a home. You had a family. You were safe. So don't you dare sit here and question my actions. You don't know fear like I do. I may be fucked in the head, but one thing I do know for sure. I didn't let those things happen to me. What happened wasn't my fault, so fuck you for blaming me." I jerk away from him and stand up, but he's quick when he meets my moves and grabs my arm. He pulls me back to him, and when I try yanking out from his hold, he tightens his grip. "Let go of me!" I yell, but he says nothing as I struggle my arm free. I don't wait another second and start walking down the hill away from him. I don't expect anyone to understand my childhood, but to think a little girl would allow someone to debase her like I was is fucking crazy. "I'm sorry," his voice hollers down to me, but I keep walking. "Elizabeth, stop!" I do. I instantly stop the moment I hear his voice break. When I turn to look up at him through the trees, I exhaust in a softer tone. "I was just a little kid." With hurried steps, he makes his way down, and when he's standing before me, he says, "I'm sorry. My words came out wrong. I'm just angry." He grabs onto me. "I'm so fucking angry when you tell me these things. I feel helpless." "Why?" "Because I want to take it away from you. Because somewhere inside my hate for you, a part of me still cares." Staring up at him, I know better than to leech on to the goodness and hope of what he just said, so I ask, "Which one is it? Do you care more than you hate?" I watch the tension strain through his eyes, and a moment passes before he answers, "No." His honesty burns and sinks down inside of me. I question why I'm even here if he hates me so much. I feel like a game to him, but I don't even know what he's gaining from playing with me like this. Shrugging out of his hold, I take a couple steps back from him before demanding, "Take me back to Isla's." "No." "It wasn't a question, Declan. I'm leaving," I tell him, and then turn my back and rush back toward the house, fuming mad. I move quickly, doing my best to avoid ice patches, when I hear his heavy footsteps behind me. Looking over my shoulder, he's moving fast, but I'm too angry to face him right now, so I pick up my pace and start running from him. "Elizabeth, stop!" he shouts from behind me, but I don't, and with each of my strides, my armor cracks. His words just reminded me how alone I am in this world. Foolish of me to think maybe he wanted me here for the sake of wanting to be near me. When I finally reach the house, I make my way around the back, but he catches me. His hand locks around my elbow, and when I stumble over my feet, he swings me around to face him and loops his arm around my waist. I cry out when he picks me up, lifting me off the ground. In a flash, he has my back pressed against the side of the house, his body pinning me to the stone. With him flush against me, both of us panting heavily, I don't fight him as emotions overflow between us. He doesn't speak, and neither do I, and before I know it, without thinking, my arms wrap around his neck. Our eyes are locked, never straying. He rests his forehead against mine, and my heart beats uncontrollably when he moves his hands to my pants. With our heads pressed together, staring into each other's eyes, revealing the unfamiliar emotions we're both experiencing, his cold fingers press against my stomach as he unzips my pants. He shoves them down, and I fumble, kicking off my shoe and working my one leg out of them as he unhooks his slacks. The foggy vapors from our heavy breaths swim between our mouths, and suddenly his hands wrap behind my knees, lifting me up. I lock my ankles around him, and the instant I feel the heat of his cock against me, a couple tears escape and fall down my cheeks. He grips himself in his hand and presses into my folds, wetting his dick as he runs his burning tip through the slick warmth of my pussy. My arms cling tightly around him when he barely pushes the head of himself inside, teasing me, tugging at my opening. Clenching my thighs around him, a few more tears fall when he finally pushes himself inside of me. I moan in carnal heat when he buries himself in my body. My heart leaps at the connection that soothes all the friction away. I'm finally pacified and free. I revel in knowing he has the antidote to clean the rot in me. I'm like the angel of martyrdom, and he's the bezoar that purifies. "Tell me you're not leaving," he says on a heavy voice that edges on violence, and I yield to him, saying, "I won't leave," because I'd do just about anything for him in this moment to keep his touch. And with my words, he takes my mouth in a savage kiss as he begins fucking me with powerful, deep strokes. His eyes blacken in primal lust as he takes me, driving me back against the wall with each of his urgent thrusts. The sounds of my moans mixed with his heady pants fill the air around us. His body grows rigid when he moves his hand to my throat, wrapping his fingers around my neck in a light choke. He releases a husky growl, and I can feel his cock strengthen and throb inside of me. "Touch yourself," he orders, and I obey. Licking my fingers first, I drag them down to my swollen clit and begin rolling them in soft circles. My eyes swim out of focus as our bodies reunite consensually for the first time in months. His grip constricts around my throat, depleting the amount of air I'm able to take in, but I don't panic as my body finds comfort in the familiarity of his tender force during sex. "Put it inside of you so you can feel me," he instructs, and I reach down a little further, my neck pushing against his hand as I slip my finger alongside his cock, sinking it in my pussy at the same time he slams inside of me. I pump my finger in rhythm with him, touching us in this way, feeling the warmth of our mended bodies, slick in arousal. It's too much. "Oh, God," I mewl loudly as I feel my walls pulse around my finger and his cock. "Don't ever walk away from me again," he scolds. "Never." "You wanna come?" "Yes." I strain around the cords of my throat that he continues to hold hostage. And in his feat of control over me, he orders, "Ask permission." "Please." My body rises in a fiery storm amidst the nearly freezing temperature. "Ask." "Please," I repeat in a breathless whimper. "I need it." "Don't do it. Don't defy me," he warns. And when I reach the brink, I clamp my thighs to his hips with as much strength as I can to slow him down. Holding on to my breath, I fight with everything in me to ward off the orgasm that's about to erupt. "That's it." He delights in his power over me. But I can't hold on. Looking in his eyes, I give in. "Can I come? Please, I need it." "You want it?" he taunts. "Yes." "Fuck yourself faster," he instructs, and I do. I lose all control and begin fingering myself against his cock that swells inside of me, spurring my explosion. I come. Hard and wild. Every muscle in my body tightens in spasms of euphoria, bucking my hips into Declan, greedy to keep the pleasure going. And then I feel his release. He soaks my finger that's still inside of me, fucking myself while he fills me up. I don't stop moving as his cum seeps out of me, running down my hand. His teeth grit as he keeps his eyes on me the whole time, and I watch him grunt in pleasure through the shatters of light that fracture my vision into 1,000 prismatic flakes of pure ecstasy. When our bodies slow, he lets go of my neck, and my head falls to his shoulder as I allow my body to slack against his. He holds me for a moment while our hearts calm and we catch our breath. I wish for frozen time, forgotten sins, and never-ending love. but I know this isn't love on his part. I'm not sure what it is, but I know it isn't that. I want it to be, though, so I keep my head tucked into the crook of his neck, scared to move, because I know the moment I do, reality will resume, and his loathing for me will continue. I wrap my legs tighter around him, wanting to prolong having him nestled inside of me, but my attempt at pushing time away doesn't last. When I feel Declan pulling out of me, I slip my finger out and wrap my hand around his still hardened cock, but he doesn't allow the contact, taking my wrist and forcing me to let go. With my feet steady on the ground, I watch as he shoves himself back into his pants. He doesn't utter a word, and his eyes are no longer on me. And then he's gone, turning his back and walking away from me, leaving me with my pants down, covered in his cum, in the bitter cold. Maybe I should feel used and dirty. Maybe I should hate him. Maybe I should give up and be done. But my heart won't let me, because in the end, I know I'll always want him any way I can get him. I'm an Epicurean for his pain. He's my sadist, and I'm his masochist. We're the reflection of each other's monsters. Chapter 29. I haven't seen Declan since he walked away from me, leaving me alone in the cold earlier today. But I haven't been looking for him either. I've spent most of the day roaming around the house, taking in the history, the artwork, and exploring the books in the library. And now, as I lie on the chaise here in the atrium at the back of the house, I gaze up at the black velvet sky peppered with stars through the glass structure. With civilization sparse and the lack of clouds, you can see every star in the sky. Thousands of them, glittering in the obsidian of night, each holding wishes from foolish people and hopeful children. And I can't help myself when I throw my own up to a few of them tonight. The house is dark, the only noise coming from the wind as it whistles through the bare trees, and with Declan's constant push and pull with me, he reminds me of the wind. It blows, wrapping itself around me, but as soon as I feel it, it's gone. It's uncatchable, unstoppable, uncontrollable, and as much as I want Declan, all I'm really doing is chasing the wind. I turn my head to the shadow of Declan who stands in the open doorway. He wears only his long pajama bottoms that hang low on his hips. A warmth surges through me as I admire the deep cuts of his abs and the defined muscles that rope his broad shoulders and arms. He's so beautiful that it pains me to look at him, but I can't stop myself. "Are you okay?" he says after a long span of silence. I nod, but it's a lie. I'm not okay. He fucked me like an animal and left me in the cold. 1 minute he's caring and sweet, and the next he's transformed, angry and silent, completely shut down and wanting nothing to do with me. And now, here he is, and I wonder what version I'm going to get. He walks into the room, and I keep my eyes on him as he moves with ease. "What are you doing out here? Aren't you freezing?" "I like the cold," I tell him. "I know you do." His words make me want to smile, but I refrain. Moving closer, he then sits next to me on the chaise. "Where have you been all day?" I ask. "In my office. I came looking for you because I have to leave tomorrow for London." "Oh." "I'll be gone for just a couple of days." "What's in London?" "Business," he answers, offering no further insight, so I inquire, "Another hotel?" "Yes. I recently closed on the land. I'm meeting a few different architects tomorrow that I could potentially hire." "That's really exciting." And when I sit up, I ask, "When will you be taking me back to Isla's?" "I won't," he says evenly. "I would prefer if you stayed here where I can keep an eye on you." "An eye on me?" He then looks away and nods his head in the direction of a small camera that's attached to one of the steel beams that connects the panes of glass. "They're in all the rooms," he states. And it makes sense that he would have that level of security in a home this massive. "Declan," I hesitate, feeling awkward about staying here while he's away. "I don't trust you at Isla's. Twice I've walked in on you hurting yourself.
But it feels weird to be here if you're not.
You don't like it here?
He asks, and I instantly respond, no, it isn't that. I do like it here. It's just...
Then you'll stay put until I get back.
I don't understand you, I whisper weakly. And with my words, he exhales deeply, turning to look away from me, dropping his elbows to his knees. Declan, please, give me something to work with here. Tell me something to help me understand. He keeps his head forward, and the tension and struggle is all over him. The muscles in his back flex, and I can see the rise and fall of it as his breathing increases. I know it's a reflection of his building emotions. I just wish I knew what they consisted of. I want to touch him, but I'm afraid it will piss him off and he'll leave again, so I keep my hands in my lap as I simply watch. When he finally speaks, his voice cracks along with my heart as he says, "Your voice. The moment I heard your voice after I was shot, I did everything I could to fight my eyes open just so I could see you. I'd already read the file. I already knew you had been lying about everything. But a part of me..." His voice slips before he takes a hard swallow and looks over his shoulder to face me, continuing. "A part of me wanted to believe I had gotten it all wrong and that it wasn't a lie. But when he said go, and you did so easily, leaving me to die..." His face contorts with the pain he's fighting to hide. "No one has ever made me feel so worthless and disposable." I was scared. My words tremble, not knowing what else to say. I was so scared.
I was too, and you left.
I hold my breath as I stare into his eyes that harbor the scars I inflicted. The burden of guilt that consumes me is paralyzing as I watch him expose the fragile pieces he hides so well. He's a man who is nothing but strength and control, but in this quiet moment, he reveals just how broken he is. Broken and hurt, and it's all because of me.
"When I came here,"
he starts again,
"I wanted nothing to do with you. I wanted you dead. But then I found myself outside with a shovel, digging up the flower bushes that surround the house like a fucking maniac, losing my mind."
"Why were you digging them up?"
"Because you told me you hated the color purple, and those shrubs bloom purple flowers in the spring."
And that's the dagger that impales my facade of strength, and my body restrains to not completely burst into tears.
"My head has been so fucked up because I can't get you out of it."
"When I was 8 years old," I begin, needing to speak because the sound of his voice is too upsetting for me. So I distract myself and reveal another part of my past, another denouement for him. I wound up being moved to a different foster home, the one that would make me believe that monsters were real. I was terrified to the core, and when I was shown the room I'd be sleeping in, all the walls were painted purple. Declan's hand finds my cheek as I continue to talk. All the years of torture and abuse were stained in purple. His other hand covers my other cheek, and he holds me. I don't want to lose the touch, but I need more to remedy the sour bile that ripples in my stomach. Mirroring his affections, I cover his cheeks with my hands. A rush of comfort wraps around me as I feel the crackle of his unshaven jaw under my hands. I tug him in, and he comes to me willingly, touching his lips to mine. We don't move as we rest peacefully against each other. The moment fractures when he abruptly pulls away. My hands fall from him as his clutch tightens around my face. I can feel the strain in his hands as their nerves vibrate against my cheeks. His body locks up, the corded muscles banded around his shoulders contract. "Why?" I breathe. "Why do you turn so cold?" He grinds his teeth, and his eyes flare disdainfully at me.
"Because I don't want to be this close to you. Because I despise you. Because you're a scheming witch."
His tone stabs like an ice pick, and I wonder if it will always be this way with us. If he truly is incapable of allowing himself to ever be vulnerable with me again,
Maybe he's destined to be the yearning ache of my heart. La douleur exquise. Then why have me here? Why don't you throw me out? Tell me you hate me.
I do hate you, he sears.
So why touch me, kiss me, fuck me?
They're my sick cravings, he admits. The hunger grows worse the more I feed it.
And the scheming witch he just accused me of being comes to life, because with him I want to be selfish. I want him to be mine and no one else's. I know I'm narcissistic when I tilt my head to the side, presenting him with the soft skin of my neck, but I don't care when I invite him to take, saying, "Then feast."
You don't want me this way.
I want you in every way. His growl is low, deep within his chest, but far from the heart that beats in deadly ways. He's a degenerate of love, but I want him regardless. He stands and demands,
"Strip, and when I return, I want you on your knees, face down on the floor and ass up."
And he just made me feel like I'm a child and taking orders from Carl. I watch as he walks out of the room, and I begin to question if it was a lie, if I really do want him in any way I can get him, because right now I want to barrel my fist into his dick for ordering me to expose myself in a humiliating position on this freezing concrete floor. As much as I want to spit my acrid words at him, I know the derelict I am. So I do as commanded. I strip. And when I walk to the center of the room, I kneel down. With my knees parted, I lower my bare chest onto the ice-cold floor, whimpering against the scathing chill that bites the tender flesh of my nipples. Stretching my arms in front of me, resting my cheek on the floor, I spread my knees wider, lift my ass in the air, and close my eyes while my heart beats wildly. Presenting myself in degradation, I wait. And I wait. And I wait. Time passes. I'm not sure how long I've been in this position when the muscles in my legs begin to burn and cramp. My body grows colder with each minute lost with no sign of Declan. Shivers overtake, and when I can't hold on to this position any longer, I let my body fall to the side. Lying here naked and mortified, I finally blink out the tears as I pull my knees into my chest and quietly weep. Was this his plan? Was this a punishment? To shame me, knowing he wasn't going to come back for me? My body turns numb after a while, making it difficult to move my muscles when I attempt to pick myself up off the ground. Slowly, I pull my clothes back on while I vacillate between loneliness, resentment, sadness, and anger. All of it swarms through me, taking my energy, and depleting me to the point where I just want to disappear. Wrapping the blanket around me, I walk into the kitchen to get a drink. And when I do, I notice a car down at the gate on the intercom monitor. The windows are darkly tinted, so that when I move closer to the black and white screen on the wall, I can't make out the person who's driving. But then the car starts to back up, and when it drives away, I begin to wonder about the life Declan has here in Scotland and the people he surrounds himself with, if any at all. I only know about Lachlan, that's it. I wonder if he's as alone as he appears to be, and who's lurking at the gate in the middle of the night. I don't even stop to peek in his room as I head to bed. I'm too embarrassed. Did he ever come back to the atrium and see me exposing my body for him? I shake the thought away, and when I go into the bathroom, I see he's set the bottle of pills the doctor prescribed me on the sink. I take a pill out and stare at it, wondering if I'm just like her, just like the woman who never wanted me. I wonder who the hell I am. I fear I'll never know if I stay here in this tug of war with the man who hates me. Flicking the pill from my fingertips, it plops into the toilet water. I know if I leave here and go back to the States, I won't want to do it alone. I need Pike. I'll probably always need him because he's still all I have, and if I take that pill, I risk losing him, and I can't lose him. Get out, I seethe when I walk back into the bedroom and see Declan.
I couldn't do it, he says. I knew if I went back to you,
I'd fuck you and hurt you because I want to punish you. I wouldn't have been able to resist taking all this anger I have out on you.
I can't do this, Declan, I say in defeat. I want to. I want to be strong enough because I don't ever want to be without you. But I'm starting to think that being here with you might just hurt worse than not being with you at all. He walks over and sits on the edge of the bed, dropping his head. There's too much pain in me. There's so much rage and hate, and I don't know how to get rid of it, I tell him. I've been fighting my whole life trying to rid myself of these feelings that won't ever go away. I move to sit across the room from him in one of the chairs. I thought getting rid of Bennett would be what I've been needing, that somehow I would feel better about this life, but I begin to cry. I don't feel better. Nothing feels better. And then I killed my brother, and I'm not entirely sure why, but I did. And I carry that with me every day. I plot revenge, and I kill, and I fight, and I still hate this life. I still hurt, and it won't go away. I don't even realize my eyes are closed, and I'm bent over, sobbing out my words until I feel his hands on my knees. I open my eyes to see him kneeling in front of me. But this hurts too, I add. Being here with you hurts me, and as much as I want to hate you for all the ways you've been humiliating me and punishing me, I'm scared to leave. I'm scared I'll never see you again.
Was Pike the only one?
What? I question, confused as to what he's asking.
You said you kill. Was he the only one?
I hesitantly shake my head, and shock streaks his face.
How many?
Closing my eyes, I confess, 3.
Jesus Christ,
he mutters in disbelief.
Who else?
My foster parents, I say when I look back down at him, and his shoulders lax a little. His hands slide past my knees and grip my thighs with his question.
What happened?
Pike and I ran away together, and shortly after, we returned one night with a friend of his, and...
I want to know everything,
he demands harshly.
I want to know how those fuckers died.
Pike and his friend, Matt, they tied them to the bed and dumped a couple containers of gasoline on them, I say. I remember standing there, watching them scream and flail around, trying to break free. Matt handed me the match like it was a gift, wrapped in the most delicate silk bow, and it was. When I struck that match and threw it on that bed, it was the greatest gift anyone had ever given me, I cry. Those sick fucks destroyed every piece of me. But here's the really sick part. As happy as it made me to kill them, it still wasn't enough. It's never enough, Declan, because I'm still so alone. I still feel worthless and disgusting, and all I ever wanted was the one thing Bennett took away from me. I miss my dad. Declan pulls me out of the chair and onto the floor with him as I lose myself to the emotions I'm so used to caging up. He cradles me in his arms, gathering me up completely and pressing me tightly against him. I miss him so much. It hurts so bad. But then I met you, and it took me a while to see it, to see how I felt about you, because I'd never experienced that feeling before. I'd never loved like I did with you, never opened myself up like that. And when I look at you, I see parts of my dad in you, the way you'd comfort me and love me. No one has ever given me that.
What about Pike?
He was my brother. It was different. With you, I finally felt like I had a home, but I knew I had destroyed our love from the beginning. I knew we never had a chance.
But that didn't stop you.
I was selfish. I knew that no amount of time with you would suffice to make it easier for me to walk away. His eyes only take a second to scorn. The flip is instant, like it always is with him, and I know what set him off when he spews,
"But you did walk away."
I don't know what else to say, so I plead for penance in the absence of words. And as we sit, his touch on me fades as his animosity breeds. It stirs in the reticence between us, and I know our expiration date is near.
The awareness that we have this death sentence over us makes me want to do two things, but I don't know which one to choose. Do I run away, or do I stay and watch us die a painful death? Chapter 30. I've been driving around the countryside trying to find the house the old lady at the water lily told me about. I was able to track Nina down once I found out she was going by Elizabeth Archer again. Made my life a little easier, and when I found out where she was staying, I was grateful when the owner was forthcoming about where I could find her. She never doubted me when I lied and told her I was Elizabeth's uncle and had been trying to get in contact with her. I had to laugh to myself because when Bennett had me follow her not so long ago, she was the easiest little thing to trace. And now, exactly as I thought, she's with the same bastard she was with back in Chicago. But now I've wasted the light of day because this fucking town isn't very considerate with street signs. I round yet another bend in the road with no houses in sight. I slow down, peering out the window, when my headlights catch a small plaque on a stone wall, and it's then I see Gates. Slowing more, the sign reads what I was told it would: Brunswick Hill. Checkmate, I mutter under my breath as I kill the headlights and pull up to the gate. Stepping out of the car, I look up the steep hill but can't see anything in the dark. No lights, nothing. Fuck. Getting back behind the wheel, I decide to just call it a night. I know that beyond this gate, they are more than likely here. For now, I'm tired as shit, but at least I have my stakeout position. And knowing there's a manhunt back in Illinois, my next steps need to be quick and deadly. Chapter 31. I can still feel the vibrations that ricocheted through my bones with each gunshot. The two that Pike fired into Declan's chest, and the single blast from the gun I held that took my brother from me. The sound is something I'll never forget. A bang so loud it knocks your shoulders back, deafening and startling. And when the mark is hit, the ice your heartless heart pumps fills your veins, and you know you'll never be the same again. Forever changed. Forever a monster. Each bullet leaves a soot stain on your soul that you can't get rid of, and you never forget the taste of burnt gunpowder on the back of your tongue. Each life you take brands you for eternity. I hoped it wouldn't. I hoped the after effects would wither away as the echoes did. But if there's one thing I've learned in this life, it's the realization that echoes live forever. I may no longer hear the screaming demons of my past, but they do indeed continue to scream. It's a reminder that you're never truly free. I don't know where I'm going or what I'm doing, but I don't think this is the place for me. I've been lost in my head all morning. Declan left at sunrise for the airport. When he did, I needed to find comfort and realized I left my doll behind. I called Isla to tell her I would be stopping by to collect the remainder of my belongings. Since he took the SUV, I take his Mercedes Roadster to Isla's. As I pull up to the charming house that I've stayed at since my arrival 2 weeks ago, I know that as much as it hurts, there's nothing here for me in Scotland. I never knew what it was I was looking for when I came here. The last thing I thought I would find was Declan alive, but I did. And maybe that's gift enough, to know he'll go on and that his life wasn't sacrificed because of my deceit. The key is under the ceramic planter, right where Isla said she would leave it. I walk in, and even though I've only been at Declan's for a couple of days, it feels much longer. But then again, each day with him is filled with insurmountable emotions and conversations. It's taken a toll on me, having to face my past and confess the truths I've hidden for so long. The hardest is having to see the pain Declan battles inside of himself. Pain that was birthed because of me. I own it. He endures it. I head upstairs, and after finding my doll, I begin to pack my things and focus on keeping the dread at bay. I wish I had direction. I wish I knew what I'm doing and where I'm going. It's a heavy emotion to carry, to know how alone I really am, but I fight to keep myself numb to all the questions there are no answers for. I move faster the more my thoughts wander. Flashbacks of what's occurred in this room begin to gnaw, and when I walk over to the bed and grab my phone that I had left behind, I freeze. Below the window, parked in the street, is the same car I saw on Declan's gate monitor last night. Or at least I think it is. So many of the cars here are the same, so I can't be certain, but something in my gut sparks the paranoia. The car is directly under my view, so all I see is the roof. Hopping off the bed, I rush downstairs,